Like and subscribe right now, or this spider will crawl on your face when you're sleeping. Do you ever feel the need to escape the hustling world and live in an isolated home in the mountains? Well, we have got you covered. Join us as we show you some of the most isolated homes around the world, which range from houses on uninhabited islands and those on secluded mountains and hills. Let's begin. Edinburgh of the Seven Seas. Sometimes it is not just one home that is left isolated from the entire world. Rather, a whole town could be left isolated. Such is the case of Edinburgh of the Seven Seas. Edinburgh of the Seven Seas is the main settlement of the island of Tristan da Cunha in Saint Helena, Ascension, and Tristan da Cunha, an overseas territory of the United Kingdom in the South Atlantic Ocean. It is regarded as the most remote, permanent settlement on Earth, being 2,173 kilometers away from the nearest other human settlement. It was named after the Duke of Edinburgh back in 1867, when he came to visit the place. But in modern times, it is just known as the settlement by the 300 people that actually live there. The closest country to this place is actually South Africa, but it's farther than the nearest settlement, as it is nearly 1,500 miles away. While there is plenty of wildlife and diversity on the island, Edinburgh of the Seven Seas is also home to a volcano right in the middle. The volcano actually erupted back in 1961, and the people had to be evacuated, but because the volcano didn't do much damage to their homes and lands, they were able to get back there and have remained there to this day.
Before we move on, I've got a little challenge for you that'll take 5 seconds to complete. So here's the deal. You just leave a like on this video, smash that subscribe button, and hit the notification bell, and you'll get 25 years of amazing luck. Try it. It really works.
House on ELLIDAEY Island. In Iceland, there is a weirdly contoured island just off the coast called ELLIDAEY Island, and on this island there is a singular home, and it is placed near perfectly right in the middle of the island. This house is actually rumored to be built by a group of hunters from Iceland who were trying to catch a puffin. Why they felt the need to put the house right there is a mystery, though. The house looks really tiny when compared to the rest of the island, and unlike many houses, it has to deal with its own unnatural weather phenomenon, mainly because of the contours of the island it is on, due to which it has to deal with incredibly violent winds. Just Enough Room Island in Canada. In Canada, there is a small island within the confines of the St. Lawrence River. The island is literally called Just Enough Room Island, because someone realized that there was just enough space on the island for a singular house and a very small yard. This tiny house has actually enough space to do all the things that a homeowner would do, including having a tree and occasionally having enough room to put out chairs and bask in the sun. However, since there is a flowing river surrounding the house, it definitely has high and low tides. When the tide is high, the yard is consumed by the water, whereas when the tide is low, the family can come out and relax in the yard and gather up and sit on chairs. To get around, the family owns a boat that they use to get out to the other side of the river if they need to go somewhere. Via Las Estrellas, Antarctica. There are only 2 settlements on the entire continent of Antarctica, and one of them is very excluded, Via Las Estrellas. This very small town, which at maximum houses only 100 people, was built on the coast of an island, right next to the continent. It is one of the very few areas at which life can be sustained, in regards to humans, as animals of all kinds live on this frozen continent. In this settlement, there is a gym, a school, a church, and even a post office. And for those who want the internet, they have Wi-Fi there. However, it is rooted in the school computers, so you have to be there to get access to it. With all that being said, isolation comes at a cost, because the winters in Antarctica come with some of the most dangerous conditions on planet Earth. And for that, many of the settlers of the town actually leave the continent to make sure they don't get hurt by the freezing cold, blistering wind and mounds of snow. Casa do PENEDO, Portugal. Casa do PENEDO literally translates to the House of Stone, which is a very apt title for this house in the Fafé Mountains in Portugal. This particular house was literally carved from 4 giant boulders, all 4 of which can still be seen today if you choose to go and visit this house for yourself. The house is fully functional, but doesn't have an electricity supply due to its construction and placement in the mountains. So if you visit it at night, you'll have to use candles. Weirdly enough, this house was actually built in 1947 and was built as a vacation house for the people who visit the place to escape the hustle and bustle of modern life. La Rinconada, Peru. The country of Peru is home to the Andes Mountains, and within the Andes there is a settlement known as La Rinconada. This town sits 17,000 feet above sea level, which makes it one of the highest human settlements on Earth right now. What might surprise you, though, is that this town is not a small one. It is actually kind of large, with 50,000 people residing in it, which is quite a feat because the mountain setting and terrain create many problems for its people. For example, there is no running water near the settlement due to the height, plus living at such heights might cause many problems in your body if you're not adjusted to it. The question arises, why do people choose to live in such a place? Well, because there is a lot of gold in the surrounding area. KATSHKI Pillar, Central Georgia. Located in the country of Georgia, a 120-foot stone pillar rises above the landscape of the local area, and on top of that stone pillar is a building, specifically a church. This Christian church is kept up by a monk who lives alone on the pillar. He maintains the church as part of his duty, while also enjoying the view of the Georgia landscape. People can climb up the pillar via an iron ladder on the side of the cliff to visit the church, but women are forbidden to do so. The most interesting part is that the origin of this church was in the 7th century, which means that they had to use ancient methods to bring up all the materials required to build the church at such a height. Rock House. In Siberia lies a river called the Drina, and during the 1960s, a group of boys decided to come to a small island in the middle of the river and make a house for themselves. Due to the size of the island, they actually had to make a platform extension upon the rock, and then build the house on top of that. The boys used the house as their own little clubhouse to have fun during the summers. The house still stands intact to this day. Weirdly, despite the height at which the clubhouse is above the water, it has occasionally been destroyed due to the flooding in the area. However, every time it is destroyed, someone rebuilds it, and that is why it still stands there intact. Coober Pedy. The town of Coober Pedy in Australia is next to an opal mine, which is one of the richest mines in the world. The problem, though, was that there was no shade in the area, so the townspeople and the miners would just roast in the sun when they weren't in the mines. So they decided to build their own town in the very mines they were digging opal from. To their credit, they actually made quite a successful underground home, to the extent that they had churches, homes, bars, and even hot tubs that you could have installed in your regular homes. Over 200 people live underground in the opal mines, and because of the enclosed nature, the temperature is much cooler than it is outside. That sounds like a win to me. SUPAI Village, Arizona. There is a Havasupai reservation in Arizona that contains the village of Supai. This place is so remote and secluded that you have to take a helicopter ride just to get to the village. There is a small trail that you can take to the village too, but it's an 8-mile walk, so there are no roads that lead to the place. In fact, the trail is the only way that the village can receive mail, and it is actually delivered by a mule. And this is one of the very few places in the US that still deliver mail in this way. One might think that this kind of seclusion wouldn't make it a very popular destination, but that's totally wrong, as tourists love to come here as it is close to the Grand Canyon, and also they can get a glimpse of the Havasu Falls. And with that, it's now time for today's subscriber pick. Today's photo was sent to us by a subscriber. If you come across a photo online and want to know more details about it, just send it over to us. We might even feature it on a future video. PRIDRANGAVITI Lighthouse, Iceland. This is another building from Iceland that seems too crazy to be true. The PRIDRANGAVITI Lighthouse is arguably the most isolated lighthouse in the world, and most definitely the scariest. The solitary structure, sitting some 120 feet above the raging North Atlantic Sea, was built in 1939. That too without helicopters, which makes imagining how they ever built this place even more impossible. Guard duty and strolling around in the middle of the night is probably not a good idea here. Cliff House. Inspired by the way barnacles can grow on the outside hull of a boat, someone decided to make a house to build as an extension of a cliff in Australia, and this is known as the Cliff House. True to its word, it is really built into the side of a cliff on the coastline of the continent, and it is made in such a way that the house, which is 6 stories in size, doesn't block the beautiful views for someone who wants to see the landscape from the top of the cliff. Which one of these houses would you actually want to live in? Let us know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe and give this video a huge thumbs up.